I'll never forget the terrifying night I took a job as a security guard at an old, dilapidated building on the outskirts of town. It was a cold, moonless evening, and the eerie silence hung heavy in the air. The building stood like a forgotten relic, its decaying facade giving off an unsettling vibe that sent shivers down my spine. My name is Alex, a 26-year-old recent college graduate from a small town. I had always been fascinated by the paranormal and enjoyed exploring haunted locations. Growing up, I devoured every ghost story and watched every horror movie I could get my hands on. It was this obsession that led me to pursue a degree in folklore and legends. After completing my studies, I found myself drawn to a job posting for a security guard position at an old, abandoned building on the outskirts of town. The building had a mysterious past, once serving as a psychiatric hospital in the early 1900s. It was rumored to be haunted, with tales of restless spirits and unexplained occurrences. The thought of guarding such a place excited and intrigued me. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to dive into the supernatural world I had always been fascinated by. The interview process was straightforward, and the hiring manager seemed just as intrigued by my background in folklore and legends as I was by the building itself. He explained that they were looking for someone who could handle the eerie atmosphere and potential paranormal activity that had been reported on the premises. I was more than willing to take on the challenge, and after a brief conversation, I was hired. As I embarked on my first night as a security guard, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. I arrived at the building, greeted by its towering structure, peeling paint, and boarded-up windows. The grandeur it once possessed had long faded, leaving only a haunting shell behind. The building's history was equally unsettling. The psychiatric hospital had been notorious for its inhumane treatment of patients, rumors of secret experiments, and mysterious deaths that were never fully explained. The echoes of suffering and anguish seemed to cling to the walls, filling the atmosphere with an undeniable heaviness. My role as a security guard was to protect the building from trespassers and vandals who were drawn to its eerie allure. Additionally, the owner had hopes of eventually renovating the site and transforming it into a museum, showcasing the dark history that permeated its walls. As I patrolled the empty hallways, my mind was filled with the stories and legends that surrounded the building. I couldn't help but wonder if the tormented souls of those who had suffered within these walls still roamed the corridors. The weight of responsibility pressed upon me, knowing that I was the only barrier between the outside world and the mysteries that lay within. Little did I know that the events of that night would plunge me into a terrifying encounter with the unknown, forever etching the memory of the monster's pursuit into the depths of my consciousness. As I entered the premises, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The dim lights flickered intermittently, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to dance in the corners of my vision. Despite my growing unease, I pushed my fears aside and reminded myself that it was just another night shift. The first few hours were uneventful. I patrolled the empty hallways, my footsteps echoing ominously through the deserted building. I couldn't help but notice the strange, musty smell that permeated the air. It was as if the building itself was rotting from within. Just as I was about to relax, a loud crash echoed from somewhere in the distance. Startled, I quickened my pace, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was not alone. As I turned a corner, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. A shadowy figure darted behind a door, disappearing into the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I could no longer deny that something was terribly wrong in this forsaken place. Summoning every ounce of courage, I cautiously approached the door. The air grew thick with tension, and my breathing became shallow. With a trembling hand, I pushed the door open, revealing a pitch-black room. I flicked on my flashlight and scanned the room, its feeble beam revealing piles of discarded furniture and cobweb-covered objects. But what caught my eye froze me in terror. A pair of glowing, malevolent eyes peered at me from the darkest corner of the room. As the creature emerged from the shadows, my eyes widened in sheer horror. Its grotesque form contorted in ways that defied the laws of nature. Its hulking figure stood at least 7 feet tall, its limbs elongated and unnaturally thin. Twisted and deformed, its body seemed to be composed of decayed flesh and exposed bones, as if it had risen from the depths of a nightmare. The creature's skin was a sickly pale shade, stretched tightly over its skeletal frame. Veins pulsed beneath the surface, casting an eerie glow that intensified the unearthly aura surrounding it. Its face was a visage of pure terror, with sunken eye sockets that housed piercing, malevolent eyes. The eyes themselves were filled with a darkness that seemed to consume all light, reflecting an insatiable hunger that chilled me to the core. Its mouth, filled with jagged, yellow teeth, stretched impossibly wide, forming a wicked grin that sent shivers down my spine. Strings of drool dripped from its fanged maw, staining the floor with a putrid, viscous fluid. The stench of decay and rot permeated the air, overpowering even the mustiness of the abandoned building. From its back sprouted a cluster of grotesque appendages, resembling twisted tentacles. They writhed and thrashed in a frenzied dance, as if they had a sinister will of their own. The sound of their slithering and scraping against the floor echoed through the corridor, amplifying the creature's otherworldly presence. As it moved closer, its limbs contorted with an unsettling fluidity, bending at impossible angles. Each step it took sent shockwaves of dread coursing through my veins. With each movement, its distorted form seemed to shift and writhe, as if it was a nightmarish amalgamation of all my deepest fears. The creature's blood-curdling screech pierced through the silence, tearing at my sanity. Its voice carried an unholy resonance, filled with a cacophony of tortured souls and ancient curses. The sound reverberated through the building, causing the very foundation to tremble. I stood frozen, locked in a horrifying tableau of terror as the monster closed in on me, its malicious intent palpable. It was a nightmarish entity that defied logic and rationality, embodying the darkest nightmares that lurked within the human psyche. In that moment, I realized that the legends and tales I had obsessed over were not merely fictional stories. They were horrifying truths that I was now face to face with, living proof of the supernatural horrors that can manifest within the shadows. With a surge of adrenaline, I turned and sprinted down the hallway, the creature hot on my heels. Its growls and snarls reverberated through the empty corridors, filling the air with a bone-chilling intensity. I dashed past rooms, desperately searching for an escape route. The monster's rapid footsteps echoed behind me, growing louder with each passing second. Panic consumed me, and I could feel its icy breath on my neck. Just as I thought my fate was sealed, I spotted an old wooden door at the end of the hallway. Summoning every ounce of strength, I lunged toward it, my fingers barely grazing the doorknob. But by some miracle, it swung open, revealing the moonlit night outside. I stumbled out into the cool air, gasping for breath. I glanced back, half expecting the monster to be right behind me. But to my relief, the creature remained trapped within the building's confines. I collapsed to the ground, my body trembling with a mix of fear and relief. The night had been a harrowing ordeal, one that would forever haunt my memories. But as I gazed up at the starry sky, I couldn't help but feel grateful that no harm had come to anyone. Shaken to my core by the harrowing encounter, I knew that I had witnessed something beyond comprehension. After managing to escape the clutches of the monstrous entity, I stumbled out of the building, my mind reeling with fear and disbelief. Gasping for breath, I made my way to the nearest payphone and dialed the emergency line. Within minutes, the police arrived at the scene, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they cautiously entered the abandoned building. I stood there, trembling, recounting the terrifying events to the officers, hoping they would believe me. The fear in my voice was evident, and the intensity of my account left them visibly unnerved. Word quickly spread throughout the small town about the nightmarish encounter I had endured. My boss, upon hearing my harrowing tale, expressed both concern for my well-being and disbelief at the supernatural aspect of my story. Others who heard my account were divided. Some dismissed it as an overactive imagination, while others regarded it as a chilling cautionary tale. Overwhelmed by the traumatic experience, I made the decision to resign from my position as a security guard. The lingering terror and the realization that the building held unspeakable horrors were enough to make me question my fascination with the supernatural. I knew that some things were better left undisturbed, their secrets forever concealed in the darkness. In the weeks following my resignation, whispers and rumors continued to circulate about the haunted building. Some curious souls attempted to explore it, but many reported experiencing unexplained phenomena and eerie encounters, further solidifying the legend that had taken root. As for me, the encounter with the monstrous entity had left an indelible mark on my psyche. I turned my back on the paranormal, choosing to embrace a life filled with mundane normalcy. It became my mission to warn others about the dangers of meddling with forces beyond our understanding, cautioning them against venturing into the unknown and awakening ancient terrors. The tale of my encounter with the monster in the old building remained etched in the memories of those who listened, serving as a chilling reminder of the existence of malevolent entities lurking in the shadows. It became a whispered legend, a dark chapter in the town's history, forever ingrained as a testament to the dangers of curiosity and the lurking darkness that resides in forgotten corners of the world.